In this little presentation, I just want to show you some examples from past work of students of this line weight and contour applied to organic forms, the things we've been looking at this week. So our first example is this plant, and what I want you to pay particular attention to are several things. One, the composition. Notice how the student fills up the paper. All right. So one of the things we want to avoid is leaving too many things in the middle of our paper floating. As we start to do more complex drawings, you'll get the hang of that because there's just going to be more and more to draw. But try when you're doing this assignment to make your object go off the paper. All right, at least in one area and close to it in other areas. That's the first thing. The second one is they've chosen a subject which has lots of variety. Even though these are the same leaves from the same kind of plant, they're all different shapes because we're seeing them in different angles from the side, pointy, kind of round on the top. So try to avoid a view or an angle where everything looks very similar. And then the two major parts of this assignment, contour and line weight. Notice the darkness where things come together and touch. Notice the darkness where things are in front and overlap, and also the dark where things are touching, and even the dark when they want to emphasize certain curves. So all the things that we talked about in the film about line weight, we can see are used here brilliantly. You know, the tips of these leaves right here, the tip of this, so it kind of comes forward and we notice it. And also the contours. Look at these edges of these leaves. They're not super smooth. They're relatively smooth, but they're not generic. They're not like a cartoon. So look for those really interesting changes in contour and shape. Put them in as well as you can, and then go back in and put in your dark areas. Now you got to draw lightly like this to begin with. Otherwise, when you add these darks, you're not really going to notice them. So be careful with that. Another example. Lots of nice darks and overlap, thinner lines. You can see the delicacy. That's in the back. This is the front, so it's a little bit darker. Really good observation of contour happening in here. You can also see the students' sight lines. Okay, so sight lines are not just for geometric forms. You can use them in your drawing. So let's say you drew this leaf first because it was in the front. By putting a sight line up the side here, or maybe one along the top, you can see who's above the sight line, who's to the left, who's to the right of those vertical sight lines. So you'll see that on a few of these drawings. Another good example here, you can see the sight lines. So keep them in your drawing. You're going to draw with pencil, and then you're going to go over your object using black Conte crayon. And again, wonderful kind of where things touch to get darker all along this edge. All these leaves pop out from behind here. They filled the space really well. Image is going off here. Something's creeping in right here. If you've got a bunch of empty space in the bottom, you can also put in another plant just so it looks like, you know, something could be there. No one's ultimately going to know. This is fairly good too, composition wise. It fills the paper. It's nice and big. We've got some nice darkness happening in a few places. These are fairly straight and smooth, so the contours is a little bit harder to pull off, but you know, pay attention to things like this. Don't do this. See how that dark just stops abruptly right there? We have to transition it into the rest of the leaf. Looks like it kind of stops here too. So this is pretty good, but a few little areas I would nitpick at. Really good darkness happening in here. But otherwise, the lines are kind of all the same darkness. So if you start pretty thick and dark, then you really got to push it to create this effect. So the trick is you want to start delicate, light, and soft. And this is a perfect example. So these lines almost disappear in places. All right. Then when the student comes in and darkens that intersection or that tip, they really stand out. All right. So go be delicate with this. Pay attention to the contours, the edges, these little twists and turns and bends and bumps. Fill your paper, and good luck.